Salak for that. But whatchamacallit? You know, this guy likes to pass rush. Wink Martindale. You know, if you go against Wink Martindale defense, you know that you're going to get blitzed a lot, right? How do you know that? Because when you read or when you watch any games, when you do the history on Wink Martindale, he likes to blitz. It's no different than reading history and understanding, okay, when Esau's in power, these things happen. Evils multiply. You know, when the righteous are in authority, these things happen. You know, it's the same thing. You know, you find out a nation's tendencies. The nation of Esau is pure brutality against black and brown people. That's what it is. That's their history. Stealing culture from black and brown people. That's Esau's history. So the things that are written aforetime are written for our learning. Imagine now, if you look at, I'm gonna give y'all something real deep to think about. If this generation of people that's alive today with all this technology, if you looked at us a few hundred years down the line, fossils, writings, you know, all types of records that we leave behind, what people 200-300 years down the line are going to say is, wow, these people didn't do shit. These people weren't advanced at all. Because our advancements depend on electricity. Our advancements depend on, like, who's to really say, when you read history, right, that you didn't have technology thousands of years ago that was better than what we got now? You know, that's something to think about, something deep to think about. Because when you read the history on Egypt, and this is likely because we was there, well, it was because we was there, they had an advanced civilization. They had fucking batteries. They had things that could fly back in Egypt. We look at Egypt and we just see sand and we see pyramids. But they had an advanced civilization. How much more do you think we were advanced with King Solomon? And the funny thing is, this might explain why you don't read too much secular stuff about King Solomon. Is probably because they might have been so advanced and they might have had a similar technological situation. It was just more probably in tune with nature. You know, they might have had advanced ways to get around and communicate. You know, how would you know that they didn't have phones back then? Because what I'm trying to tell you is, what if they found back then a way to make a phone out of something else? You know what I mean? Like a stone. You know, put some technology in there, and then later on that technology evaporates or whatever over time. The only thing you see is the fucking stone, and you think you're just looking at a plain stone. No, you're looking at what could have been a fucking original, I don't want to say cell phone, but an original. Oh man, people are reckless on the road. But anyway, you know, that's a lot to think about sometimes when you read about how, and you know, and you're in 2026 reading about something that happened hundreds of years ago or thousands of years ago, and then you wonder why did this people not get conquered? And there's likely things in the history that if you put it together, you'd be like, oh shit, maybe they had some type of weaponry that didn't survive history. You know, do you think these nukes would survive history if they never get shot off? Pause. You know, how would the nukes look hundreds of years later on down the line when you're looking at the ruins of America? You know, how do you know? Later on down the line, how do you know those were nukes? You don't have a lot of writing these days. You have a lot of tablets and you have a lot of technology. You don't even have a lot of written records these days. Everything's stored electronically. You know, the office of scribe, you can still be a scribe. You just pretty much use a laptop to scribe. It's not like back then when you had pens. You know, so what I'm saying to y'all is history has a lot of mysteries hidden in it. And you know, that stuff is cool, that stuff is neat. But the real thing is you have to learn history to learn how we got here. How did America, you know, even become a thing? Why? You know, I don't know about y'all, but it helps me with my faith that history backs up the Bible. You know, and if anybody else has a moment of doubt, and how do you know this? How do we get here? You know, but anyway, with that, I'm going to say shalom.